Welcome to our speaker resource videos, brought to you by the Program Committee and Education Innovation Chair. We're so glad you're presenting at Convention. As professionals and adult learners, we know that learning takes work. We see it day after day with our clients, students, and patients. We know it takes focus, repetition, and most importantly, intentional practice to learn a new skill. As presenters, we have to go beyond lecturing in a sit and get format and find opportunities for our audience to relate to the material and own their own learning. So let's discover some great tools for helping all of us level up our learning at Convention. What is active learning anyway? Growing up, we probably all experienced traditional classroom learning where we sat quietly and listened, and maybe one or two people answered a question here or there. That's passive learning. In contrast, active learning lets everyone participate by engaging with the material, practicing critical thinking, and synthesizing or applying the information. Do some of these words look familiar? That's right. Those are action words we used from Bloom's taxonomy to write our learner objectives. Use those words to help you decide what activities will work best for your audience and instruction level. We'll work through some examples later in the video. Now, every speaker and every presentation is different, but if you're new to planning active learning, this outline is a good place to start. The bulk of your session will be spent in lecture-style learning, but plan for small, active learning activities throughout that may last 3 to 5 minutes each. Now let's talk about ideas for those activities. Video case studies are a great way to illustrate a concept or show a clinical strategy. You can use them to pull pieces of your presentation together and have your audience apply multiple concepts in one activity. For example, in a presentation about eliciting vowels, you might teach them cueing strategies as well as a sound hierarchy. Then your case study might review how a patient progressed over time with vowels, and you could show a video of the cueing techniques in a treatment session. You can level up video case studies by making your video interactive. Prepare the audience for what they should be looking for, pause and ask them to identify what they saw, then pose questions for reflection or discussion after the video. Now, leading a large group discussion can be intimidating, as there's always the worry that no one will speak up and contribute. But there are some things you can do to warm up the crowd first. The first is to have them raise their hands to answer simple questions. This could be a poll at the beginning of the session to help you get to know your audience better, such as what setting they work in or how much experience they have with your topic. You can also get them up and moving. Explain there will be some activities later where they will need a partner or two. Switching seats early in the session helps them mentally prepare for participation later. Starting with other activities like breakout groups will get them sharing with someone close by and can make them feel more comfortable about sharing with a larger group next. And you can level up your group discussion by using technology. There are a lot of live online polling options out there, and many are free. This is a great way to include reluctant audience members as well, because it's much easier to type something on your phone than raise your hand and speak. Different sites have different features that allow multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, or even quiz games. You can choose the features that work best for your learning objectives. Keep in mind that there may not be complimentary Wi-Fi in convention or hotel conference rooms, so you'll want to have a hotspot available for your session if you're using this. Let's talk a bit more about breakout groups since there are a lot of ways to set them up. Single person activities should be quick. Give 1 to 2 minutes to reflect on a question or concept, take a self-assessment, or write down thoughts on a prompt. Paired activities usually take 2 to 4 minutes. Some presenters even like to use think, pair, share. This gives learners 1 minute to think on their own, then 2 to 3 minutes to share with a partner nearby. If you choose a small group activity, it's usually best to limit groups to 4 to 5 people. With anything larger, some people won't get to participate. Be sure you give enough time for them to complete the activity, but monitor closely so folks aren't off task. To make breakout groups successful, it's important to do some specific planning ahead of time. Have several questions or discussion prompts planned. Be sure your instructions to the group are specific and clear. Try to avoid complex or multi-step discussion prompts as they can be confusing. Remember to give your audience a specific time limit with their instructions, and a 1-minute warning is helpful. But be flexible and end the activity early if you feel like folks are finished. I also recommend to take some time after the breakout group to reflect back with the larger audience. That might mean asking for feedback from a couple of groups, or you as the speaker summarizing what trends you heard folks talking about. That provides a nice wrap-up to the activity and allows learners to compare or contrast their thoughts with others. One more learning activity to consider is a practice lab, which is best used during presentations that are at least 2 hours and are intermediate to advanced. These labs allow for a significant amount of time, 15 to 20 minutes or more, where participants can create or develop something in order to practice applying the information they've learned. This means choosing learner objectives from the top 2 to 3 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. For example, in a presentation given about goal writing techniques, poster board was placed around the room with different disorders written at the top, and participants walked around adding goal ideas to each poster. By the end, everyone could take pictures of the posters and have a goal bank to take home. Another example is having small groups write social stories on different topics after teaching them the structure and purpose of these. Practice labs can be used for any clinical or professional topic and are the ultimate way to make sure your participants leave confident that they can implement the new skills they've learned. Before we get to an example, just a few more tips. With any of these learning opportunities, it's important for the speaker to maintain control of the activity. Make sure your audience knows what's expected of them during this time. Be sure to leave discussion questions or your assignment up on the screen so they can refer to it. If you have a small crowd, ask them to sit closer to the front. You may be able to do more discussion as a whole group rather than having to rely on breakouts. Whereas with larger crowds, you may want to rely on tools like breakout groups and live polling so that you can continue to keep even the back of the room engaged. Sometimes it's hard because you don't always know how many people will show up for your session. Come prepared with a couple of backup plans so that you can be flexible in the moment and choose what works best for your group. Now for our example. Let's take a presentation about phonological treatment approaches, and we'll break it down so you can see what learner objectives written at different instructional levels might look like for active learning. For a beginner level session, let's choose action words from the remember and understand levels of the taxonomy. List and describe. My talk would probably focus mostly on reviewing the various approaches, and I think a nice learner activity would be a pair and share to talk with a partner about what approaches they've used previously and which one they think they would like to learn more about to try for someone on their caseload. Some case study videos would be another excellent learning activity to introduce these approaches. For an intermediate level talk, let's choose action words from the apply and analyze levels of the taxonomy. Contrast, and use. This talk might focus on just a couple of phonological approaches since we're going more in depth on each one. This time, case study videos could have them identify which approaches they see being used. I could then have them break out into small groups and provide a list of errors from a sample child. I could ask them to use an approach to choose target words they would use in treatment. And then on to the last session. This time we'll choose action words from the evaluate and create levels of the taxonomy, select and design. Because it's an advanced session, I'll discuss one primary approach and assume participants have basic knowledge of several others. My case study video might be more of a practice lab where I can guide them through watching a video, identifying errors, selecting a treatment approach based on those errors and target words, and then designing a treatment plan. So you can see, there are lots of ways to implement active learning, and I hope you'll try some in your sessions. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that we're available if you want support with these tools. You can reach out to the programming email. Or show up at one of our speaker support office hours and get help with planning your breakout groups, choosing a live polling option, or embedding your case study videos in PowerPoint. We are here for you, and we can't wait to learn from you at convention.